Admiral Karen Blake walked through the long hallway of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. Her black military uniform felt heavy on her shoulders. She had been coming to this place for 10 years, asking the same questions and getting the same answers. Today would be different, though. Today, the Council would finally give her people what they needed. The building was huge and made of some kind of white stone that seemed to glow from the inside. Alien creatures moved through the halls, talking in languages that sounded like music, clicking sounds, or strange humming. Karen had learned to understand most of them over the years, but she still felt like an outsider. She stopped in front of the main chamber doors. They were 30 feet tall and covered with symbols from 100 different worlds. Karen took a deep breath and pushed them open. The council chamber was even bigger than the hallway. Representatives from 50 different alien species sat in a large circle. The Zephyrians looked like walking crystals that changed colors when they talked. The Hive Mind Collective were bug-like creatures that moved together like they shared one brain. The Etherians glowed with soft light and never seemed to touch the ground. At the center of the circle sat Prime Counselor Vextar. He was from a species called the Tentari. His body was like a large octopus, but he walked upright on 4 of his tentacles. The other tentacles moved constantly while he talked, like they had minds of their own. "Admiral Blake," Vextar said in his deep voice, "you have requested this meeting to discuss Earth's application for advanced weapons technology. Is this correct?" Karen stepped forward into the center of the circle. She felt the eyes of every alien creature watching her. Some looked curious, others looked bored, and a few looked angry. "Yes, Prime Counselor," she said. "Humanity has been part of the Galactic Council for 300 years. We have followed all the rules. We have paid our taxes. We have sent our young people to serve in council fleets. Now we need help." A Zephyrian representative made a sound like breaking glass. When Zephyrians talked, their crystal bodies changed color. This one turned deep red, which Karen knew meant anger. "Humanity asks for weapons," the Zephyrian said. "Always weapons, always war. Your species has not learned peace in 3 centuries of council membership." Karen felt her face get hot, but she kept her voice calm. "We are not asking for weapons to fight each other. We are asking for weapons to defend ourselves. The Devourers are coming." The mention of the Devourers made the whole chamber go quiet. Even the Hive Mind Collective stopped their constant clicking. The Devourers were machine beings that ate entire star systems. They turned planets into raw materials and destroyed every living thing they found. Vextar's tentacles moved faster. "The Devourer threat is real," he said, "but giving weapons to humanity is not the answer. Your people fight wars over water, over land, over ideas. How can we trust you with weapons that could destroy planets?" "Because we're good at fighting," Karen said. "That's exactly why you should give us these weapons. Every other species in the Council gave up war long ago. You forgot how to fight. We never did." An Etherian representative floated forward. Etherians were the most peaceful species in the galaxy. They glowed with soft blue light and spoke in voices that sounded like singing. "Admiral Blake," the Etherian said, "we understand your fear. But violence only creates more violence. Perhaps if humanity learned to resolve conflicts peacefully, the Council could reconsider." Karen almost laughed, but she caught herself. "How long do you think we have before the Devourers reach human space? 5 years? 10? You want us to completely change our nature in that time?" A member of the Hive Mind Collective spoke up. When they talked, it sounded like 1,000 voices speaking at once. "The collective has analyzed human behavior for 3 centuries, they said. Humans show no signs of evolutionary advancement beyond primitive aggression. Risk of weapons technology. Misuse 97.3%. More alien voices joined in. They talked about humanity's wars, their crimes, their failures. They talked about humans like they were dangerous animals that needed to be kept in cages. Karen listened to it all. She had heard these arguments before. The aliens saw humans as violent children who couldn't be trusted with anything dangerous. They didn't understand that sometimes violence was the only answer. "I have one question for all of you," Karen said when they finished talking. "When the Devourers attacked the Keltian Empire, What happened? The chamber went quiet again. The Kelsian Empire had been one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. They had technology that could move stars and create new forms of life. But when the Devourers came, all that advancement meant nothing. The Kelsian fought bravely, Vextar said quietly, but they were not prepared for total war. No, Karen said, they weren't, because they had forgotten how to fight. Just like all of you have forgotten. You've spent so long being civilized that you've forgotten how to be savage when you need to be. She looked around the circle at all the alien faces. The Devourers don't care about your art or your philosophy or your peaceful ways. They only understand destruction, and when they come for you, you'll wish you had someone who remembered how to destroy them back. Vextar's tentacles stopped moving. This was the sign that he was about to make an important announcement. The Council has made its decision, he said. Earth's application for advanced weapons technology is denied. Humanity will receive no further military assistance from the Galactic Council. Karen felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. 3 centuries of friendship, and this was how it ended. Furthermore, Vextar continued, Earth's voting rights in military matters are suspended until such time as humanity demonstrates a commitment to peaceful conflict resolution. The other representatives began to file out of the chamber. Some looked sad, others looked relieved. None of them looked back at Karen. She stood alone in the massive chamber for a long time. Outside the tall windows, she could see ships from a dozen different worlds flying through the sky. None of them were human ships. Karen finally turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the empty chamber. As she reached the door, she made a decision. If the galaxy wouldn't help humanity, then humanity would have to help itself. She pulled out her communication device and sent a coded message to Earth. It was just 3 words, but they would change everything. Activate Project Retribution. Tron, Earth, in a secret facility buried deep underground, President Lisa Martinez received the message. She had hoped it would never come to this, but she had been preparing for this day for 50 years. The galaxy had given up on humanity. Now it was time for humanity to show the galaxy what they had given up. Dr. Angela Rodriguez floated through the zero-gravity construction zone, watching the final pieces of humanity's greatest secret come together. Around her, thousands of workers in spacesuits moved like busy ants, welding, connecting, and testing every part of the massive ship. The ship was called the UES Retribution, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where alien ships were smooth and elegant, the Retribution looked like a floating fortress. It was 5 kilometers long and covered in thick armor plating that made it look more like a flying mountain than a spaceship. Dr. Rodriguez, the captain, is here for the final tour, said her assistant engineer Danny Cooper. He was young and excited like most of the people working on the project. They all knew they were building something special. Captain Stephen Hayes arrived at the construction site in a small shuttle. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had been chosen to command the Retribution because he was the best military mind Earth had ever produced. Doctor, Hayes said as he floated over to her, I've been reading the technical reports, but I need to see this with my own eyes. Rodriguez smiled. She had been working on this project for 20 years, and she was proud of what they had built. Follow me, Captain, she said. Let me show you what 50 years and $1 trillion can buy. They entered the ship through a massive airlock. The inside of the Retribution was just as impressive as the outside. The corridors were wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were made of the same thick armor that covered the outside of the ship. The first thing you need to understand, Rodriguez said as they walked, is that this ship doesn't work like alien ships. They use energy shields and plasma weapons. We use armor and bullets. Hayes ran his hand along the wall. It felt cold and solid, like touching a mountain. How thick is this armor, he asked. 30 meters, Rodriguez said. It's made from a special alloy that we developed just for this project. It can stop anything the aliens have ever built. They walked into the main weapons control room. Lieutenant Commander Amy Sullivan was waiting for them. She was the ship's weapons officer, and she knew every gun on the ship better than her own family. "Captain," Sullivan said, "welcome to the deadliest room in the galaxy." The weapons control room had screens showing every part of the ship's armament. There were hundreds of weapons, from small defense guns to massive cannons that could destroy entire fleets. "The aliens laugh at our weapons," Sullivan said. "They think bullets and missiles are primitive, but they've never seen what happens when you make bullets that move at half the speed of light." She pointed to a screen showing the ship's main guns. They were enormous, each one bigger than most alien ships. "These are magnetic acceleration cannons," she explained. "They fire projectiles using magnetic fields. The projectiles are made of super-dense metals and move so fast they can punch through anything." Hayes studied the weapons displays. He had spent his whole career fighting with outdated human technology. Now he was looking at weapons that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. "What about the nuclear weapons?" he asked. Rodriguez and Sullivan exchanged a look. The nuclear weapons were the most secret part of the project. "Come with us," Rodriguez said. They took a lift down to the lower levels of the ship. The lift ride took 5 minutes because the ship was so big. When they finally stopped, they were in a room that looked like the inside of a giant machine. "These are the nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers," Rodriguez said. "The aliens abandoned nuclear weapons thousands of years ago. They think they're too dangerous and unpredictable. They're right about the dangerous part. The weapons looked like huge metal tubes connected to even bigger power sources. Warning signs in a dozen languages covered every surface. When we fire these," Sullivan explained, "we detonate a small nuclear bomb inside a special chamber. The explosion creates X-rays that we focus into a beam. It only lasts for a few seconds, but those few seconds can cut an alien ship in half." Hayes was amazed. He had never imagined weapons this powerful. "How many crew does this ship need?" he asked. 15,000, Rodriguez said. "I know that sounds like a lot, but remember, alien ships are mostly automated. They rely on computers to do everything. We don't." They continued the tour, visiting the engine room, the crew quarters, and the command center. Every part of the ship was built for one purpose: to fight and win battles against enemies who thought they were superior. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Bobby Turner showed them the power source. 6 fusion reactors, each one bigger than a city block, provided energy for the ship. "The aliens use something called zero-point energy," Turner explained. "It's very efficient and clean. Our fusion reactors are dirty and loud and take up a lot of space. But they work, and they're hard to break." The crew quarters were simple but comfortable. The ship could house 15,000 people for years if necessary. Unlike alien ships that could only operate for short periods, the Retribution was built for long campaigns. The command center was the heart of the ship. It was a huge room filled with screens and control stations. From here, the captain could control every aspect of the ship. "The aliens control their ships with thought interfaces and advanced AI," said Commander Rachel Stone, the ship's first officer. "We use buttons and switches and human brains. It's slower, but it's also harder to hack or jam." Hayes sat in the captain's chair and looked around at all the controls. It was overwhelming but also exciting. "How long until we're ready?" he asked. "The ship is ready now," Rodriguez said. "We've been testing systems for 6 months. All we need is a crew." "The crew is ready too," Hayes said. 15,000 of Earth's best soldiers, engineers, and officers. They've been training in secret facilities around the solar system." Rodriguez felt a mix of pride and worry. She was proud of what they had built, but worried about what it meant. The Retribution was a weapon of war, and weapons of war were meant to be used. "Captain," she said, "I have to ask, do you really think we'll need to use this ship?" Hayes was quiet for a moment. He thought about the Galactic Council and their refusal to help humanity. He thought about the Devourers moving slowly but surely toward human space. "Doctor," he said finally, "the galaxy has made it clear that humanity is on its own. When the time comes, the ship might be the only thing standing between Earth and complete destruction." As if summoned by his words, an alarm began to sound throughout the ship. A voice came over the communication system. "All personnel, this is Control. We have received an emergency message from Earth Fleet Command. Devourer scouts have been detected in the outer systems. This is not a drill. Hayes stood up from the captain's chair. The time for preparation was over. "Dr. Rodriguez," he said, "thank you for building humanity's sword. Now it's time to see if it can cut." The retribution began to come to life around them. Lights that had been dim brightened to full power. The engines, silent for months, began to hum with energy. Throughout the ship, 15,000 crew members reported to their stations. Humanity's greatest weapon was finally ready for war. Captain Stephen Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching 200 Devourer ships form into attack formation. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. "All stations report ready, Captain," said Commander Rachel Stone from her position at the tactical station. Her voice was steady, but Hayes could see the excitement in her eyes. "Enemy fleet is moving into attack formation," reported Lieutenant Commander Amy Sullivan from the weapons console. "Range, 500,000 kilometers and closing." Hayes looked at the main screen. The Devourer ships moved in perfect coordination, like parts of a giant machine. Each ship was exactly the same size and shape, built for maximum efficiency in battle. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations using the same tactics. "Sir," called Ensign Peter Clark from the sensor station, "the enemy ships are scanning us. They seem confused by our design." Hayes smiled. The aliens had forgotten what a real warship looked like. For thousands of years, they had fought with energy weapons and shields. The retribution was something completely different. "They're trying to figure out what we are," Stone said. "Our armor is so thick their sensors can't penetrate it." "Let them wonder," Hayes said. "Mr. Sullivan, are all weapon systems ready?" "All systems green, Captain," Sullivan replied. "Main guns loaded and ready. Point defense systems online. Nuclear weapons armed and ready for deployment." The Devourer fleet reached attack range and opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and antimatter missiles streaked toward the retribution. Hayes watched calmly as death approached his ship. "Point defense engage," he ordered. The space around the retribution suddenly filled with thousands of projectiles. Every point defense gun on the ship opened fire at once, creating a wall of metal between the ship and the incoming attacks. The antimatter missiles exploded harmlessly as tungsten bullets moving at incredible speed tore them apart. The energy beams hit the ship's armor and simply disappeared, absorbed by 30 meters of specially designed metal. "No damage reported," called Chief Engineer Bobby Turner from the engine room. "Armor is holding perfectly." On the main screen, Hayes could see the Devourer ships slowing down. Their tactical computers were trying to understand what had just happened. They had never encountered a ship that could simply ignore their weapons. "They're confused," Stone observed. "Their whole battle doctrine is based on energy weapons defeating energy shields. They don't know how to deal with armor." "Then let's give them something else to think about," Hayes said. "Mr. Sullivan, target the lead enemy formation. Fire main. Guns." The Retribution's primary weapons came to life. Magnetic fields more powerful than those found in stars accelerated projectiles to incredible speeds. The main guns fired, and space itself seemed to bend around the projectiles as they flew toward their targets. The first Devourer ship simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was a cloud of expanding debris. The projectile had hit, with so much force that the ship's atomic structure had come apart. "Direct hit," Sullivan reported. "Enemy vessel completely destroyed." But Hayes wasn't done. "All forward batteries, continuous fire. Show them what real firepower looks like." The Retribution unleashed hell. Dozens of weapons fired at once, sending a stream of destruction toward the Devourer fleet. Ships that had survived the attacks of entire alien armadas died in seconds. The Devourers tried to adapt. It was what they did best. They analyzed the attacks and began to adjust their formations and tactics. But every time they figured out one weapon system, the Retribution switched to something completely different. "Missile batteries, fire," Hayes ordered. Hundreds of nuclear-tipped missiles launched from the ship's missile tubes. The Devourers tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Each missile carried a warhead more powerful than anything seen in galactic warfare for centuries. The explosions lit up space like tiny suns. Devourer ships caught in the blasts simply evaporated. Others were damaged and left spinning helplessly through space. 30 enemy ships destroyed, reported Stone. They're trying to regroup, but the Devourers were learning. Hayes could see them changing their attack patterns, spreading out to avoid the nuclear missiles. They were adapting, just like they always did. "Sir," Sullivan said, "they're dispersing their formation. They're going to try to surround us." "Let them come," Hayes said. "Time to show them our special weapons. Charge the X-ray lasers." Deep in the ship's lower levels, nuclear reactors began building up energy for the most powerful weapons humanity had ever created. The nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers were based on technology the aliens had abandoned thousands of years ago. X-ray. "Lasers charged and ready," Sullivan reported. "Fire." The nuclear weapons detonated inside specially designed chambers. For a brief moment, the retribution contained the power of a star. That power was focused into beams of X-rays that could cut through anything in the galaxy. The beams lanced out toward the Devourer fleet. Ships that had survived nuclear explosions were sliced in half like they were made of paper. The X-rays cut through their armor, their hulls, and their electronic systems. 50 more enemy ships destroyed, Stone reported with amazement. "Sir, they've never seen anything like this." But the Devourers were still trying to adapt. The surviving ships began to move in random patterns, trying to avoid the deadly beams. They were learning, but they were learning too slowly. They can't adapt to chaos, Hayes realized. They're machines. They need patterns to understand. Give them railguns. The ship's railguns opened fire, sending solid projectiles at incredible speeds toward the enemy. At the same time, plasma cannons added their own deadly streams of superheated gas. Laser batteries cut through space while conventional missiles added to the destruction. The Retribution was using every type of weapon humans had ever invented, all at the same time. Each weapon worked differently with different strengths and weaknesses. The Devourers couldn't adapt to all of them at once. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat," Stone reported. "They're trying to disengage." "Not today," Hayes said grimly. "Communications. Open a channel to all enemy ships." "Channel open, sir." Hayes looked directly at the main screen, knowing the Devourers could see him. "This is Captain Hayes of the human battleship Retribution. You came here to destroy our people and our world. That was a mistake." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You think you're superior because you can adapt to any weapon, but you can't adapt to all weapons. Humanity never forgot how to fight because we never stopped expecting to need to fight. The remaining Devourer ships tried to escape, but the Retribution was faster. One by one, Hayes hunted them down and destroyed them. When it was over, 200 enemy ships had been reduced to debris floating in space. "All enemy contacts destroyed," Stone reported. "The system is clear." Hayes felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. They had won the battle, but he knew it was just the beginning. The Devourers would send more ships, and eventually humanity would have to face their entire fleet. "Communications. Open a channel to New Dallas Control," he ordered. Governor Patterson's face appeared on the screen. The man looked stunned, like he couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. "Governor," Hayes said, "this is Captain Hayes. New Dallas is secure. You can begin rescue and recovery operations." "Captain," Patterson said slowly, "I've never seen anything like that. How is it possible?" Hayes smiled. "The galaxy thought humanity was too primitive to matter. They forgot that sometimes the old ways work best. We just reminded them." As the Retribution moved toward New Dallas to begin rescue operations, Hayes received a priority message from Earth Fleet Command. Admiral Blake's face appeared on his private communication screen. "Stephen," she said, "word of your victory is already spreading across the galaxy. The Galactic Council wants to talk." Hayes laughed. "Let me guess. They suddenly think humanity might be useful after all." "Something like that," Blake replied. "But there's more. Our deep space sensors are detecting massive Devourer fleet movements. They're mobilizing everything they have." Hayes nodded. He had expected this. The Devourers would not ignore the destruction of an entire battle fleet. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe 6 months," Blake said. "Maybe less." Hayes looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, An enemy, unlike any the galaxy had ever faced, was preparing for war. "Then we'd better get ready," he said. "It's time to wake up the rest of the fleet." Governor Mike Patterson stood on the observation deck of New Dallas Control Tower, watching the sky above his world turn into a nightmare. Dark shapes moved between the stars, blotting out the light from distant suns. The Devourers had finally come. New Dallas was a frontier world with 4 million people. Most of them were farmers, miners, and their families. They had come here to build new lives on a world far from Earth's crowded cities. Now they were about to die. "Sir," called Lieutenant Grace Turner from her communication station, "the orbital defense platforms are under attack. We're losing them fast." Patterson turned away from the window. Turner was young and scared, but she was doing her job. Everyone in the control tower was scared. They had all heard stories about what the Devourers did to worlds they attacked. "How many enemy ships?" Patterson asked. "Our sensors show at least 200 contacts," Turner replied. "They're moving in perfect formation, like they're all controlled by one mind." Patterson nodded grimly. The Devourers were machines, not living beings. They thought and acted like a giant computer, always choosing the most efficient way to destroy everything they found. Through the window, he could see explosions in the sky as the defense platforms died one by one. Each platform had enough firepower to destroy a normal invasion fleet, but the Devourers weren't normal. They learned from every shot fired at them and adapted their defenses. "Sir," Turner said, her voice shaking, "the platform commanders are requesting permission to evacuate." "Granted," Patterson said. "Tell them to get their people to the surface. We'll need every trained soldier we can get." But they all knew it wouldn't matter. The Devourers had destroyed civilizations much more advanced than New Dallas. When they were done, nothing would be left but empty space and cosmic dust. The first Devourer ships entered the atmosphere an hour later. They looked like geometric shapes made of dark metal, with no curves or smooth lines. Each ship was perfectly functional, built only to destroy and consume. "All civilian transports evacuate immediately," Patterson broadcast on all frequencies. "Head for the jump points, don't wait for escort." Thousands of ships began lifting off from cities and towns across the planet. Families packed into cargo haulers, passenger liners, and anything else that could fly. But the Devourer interceptors were waiting for them. The first transport to reach orbit was a passenger liner carrying 500 people. Patterson watched helplessly as 3 Devourer fighters surrounded it. The liner tried to run, but the enemy ships moved faster. A beam of energy cut the liner in half and 500 lives ended in a flash of light. "My God," Turner whispered. More transports died as they tried to escape. The Devourers weren't just killing them quickly, they were studying each ship they destroyed, learning about human technology and tactics. Every death made them stronger. "Sir," called Sergeant Bill Harper from the Defense Coordination Station, "ground forces report enemy landing craft approaching major population centers. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Patterson felt sick. He had fought in the border wars against human pirates and rebels, but this was different. Those enemies had been cruel and violent, but they were still human. They could be reasoned with, bargained with, or at least understood. The Devourers were something else entirely. "Send the evacuation order to all planetary settlements," he said. "Everyone needs to get underground or get off-world." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was hopeless. The Devourers had cut off escape routes. Anyone who tried to leave would be shot down. Anyone who stayed would be harvested for raw materials. The first ground battle began in New Dallas City, the planet's capital. Human soldiers with conventional weapons faced machines that had been designed to fight advanced alien armies. The battle lasted 12 minutes. "New Dallas City has fallen," reported Harper. "All communication with ground forces has been lost." Patterson closed his eyes. 50,000 people lived in the capital. Now they were gone, their bodies turned into materials for more Devourer machines. "Sir," Turner said suddenly, "I'm receiving a transmission from deep space. It's a human ship." Patterson felt a spark of hope. Maybe Earth Fleet Command had sent reinforcements. "Put it through," he said. A man's voice filled the control room. It was calm and professional despite the chaos around them. New Dallas Control, this is Captain Stephen Hayes aboard the UES Retribution. We are en route to your position. Estimated arrival time 6 hours. Patterson frowned. He had never heard of a ship called the Retribution. In fact, he thought he knew every major vessel in the human fleet. UES Retribution, this is Governor Patterson. I've never heard of your ship. What's your designation and fleet assignment? There was a pause before Hayes replied. Governor, the Retribution is a classified vessel operating under special orders from Earth Fleet Command. We're coming to help. Turner looked up from her console. Sir, I'm not showing any ships on long-range sensors. If there's a human ship out there, it's either very small or very far away. Patterson thought about it. 6 hours was too long. The Devourers would have stripped the planet bare by then. Captain Hayes, he said, we appreciate any help you can send, but we need immediate assistance. We have 4 million civilians under attack. We understand the situation, Governor. Hayes replied. Hold your position. Help is coming. The transmission ended, leaving the control room in silence. Sir, Harper said quietly, should we tell the people? Give them hope? Patterson looked out the window again. More explosions lit up the sky as the last of the orbital defenses fell. In the distance, he could see the glow of fires from cities under attack. No, he said. Don't give them false hope. One ship, no matter how good, can't stop this. But as the hours passed, something strange happened. The Devourer advance slowed down. Instead of the quick, efficient destruction they were known for, they seemed to be taking their time. Sir, Turner reported, the enemy appears to be studying us. They're capturing human equipment and personnel instead of just destroying everything. Patterson realized what was happening. The Devourers had never fought humans before. They were learning about human technology and tactics before making their final push. It was buying time, but it was also making things worse. When they finished, learning they would be even deadlier. 5 hours and 47 minutes after the first transmission, Turner's console lit up with alerts. Sir, I'm detecting a massive hyperspace signature at the edge of the system. Something big is coming out of jump. Patterson held his breath. It could be human reinforcements or it could be more Devourers. Sir, Turner said, her voice filled with wonder. It's a human ship, but it's enormous. I've never seen anything like it. On the main screen, a shape began to resolve out of the darkness of space. It was huge, bigger than any ship Patterson had ever imagined. It looked like a flying fortress covered in weapons and armor. All Devourer units, came a broadcast, on all frequencies. This is Captain Hayes of the UES Retribution. You have attacked human civilians. You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this system or face the consequences. The Devourer fleet, which had been spread across the planet, suddenly reformed into attack formation. 200 ships moved toward the lone human vessel. Patterson watched in amazement as the massive ship simply waited. It didn't try to run or hide. It just sat there in space like it was daring the entire enemy fleet to attack. Governor, Hayes' voice came over the communication system one more time. You might want to watch this. We're about to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. The battle was about to begin. Admiral Karen Blake walked into the Galactic Council chambers for the second time in 6 months. But everything was different now. The same aliens who had dismissed humanity were now leaning forward in their seats, watching her every move with interest and respect. Prime Counselor Vextar's tentacles moved in slow, careful patterns as she approached. The Zephyrian representatives had changed from angry red to curious blue. Even the Hivemind Collective had stopped their constant clicking to focus on her. Admiral Blake, Vextar said, his voice much more respectful than before. The Council has reviewed the battle reports from New Dallas. We must admit we are impressed. Blake smiled coldly. 6 months ago, these same beings had refused to help humanity defend itself. Now they wanted to be friends because humans had proven they could fight. Impressed? She said. That's an interesting word choice, Counselor. 6 months ago you called us primitive and dangerous. What changed your mind? A Zephyrian representative spoke up, its crystal body shifting to a nervous yellow color. The battle footage from New Dallas has been analyzed by our military experts. One human vessel destroyed, 200 Devourer ships without taking significant damage. This should have been impossible. Why? Blake asked. Because we use bullets instead of energy beams? Because we prefer armor over shields? An Etherean diplomat floated forward, glowing with soft white light. Admiral, we must admit our mistake. We believed that technological advancement meant abandoning older methods of warfare. Your species proved us wrong. Blake looked around the chamber. These aliens had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, but they had forgotten the most basic truth about survival. Sometimes you had to fight. The truth is, she said, you all became so civilized that you forgot how to be uncivilized when necessary. You perfected energy weapons and thought kinetic weapons were obsolete. You developed advanced shields and forgot about armor. You created AI-controlled fleets and dismissed human crews as inefficient. She walked to the center of the circle just as she had months before. But this time she was not asking for help. This time she was offering it. The Devourers are machines, she continued. They learn and adapt to whatever destroys them, but they can only adapt to patterns they understand. Our ship doesn't use one technology, it uses dozens. Bullets, missiles, lasers, plasma, nuclear weapons, railguns, and things you've probably forgotten existed. Vextar's tentacles writhed with what Blake recognized as excitement. How many ships like the Retribution does humanity possess? Blake's smile grew wider. That's classified information, Counselor. But I can tell you this, the Retribution was our first battleship, not our last. The truth was even more impressive than she let on. For 50 years, while the galaxy had ignored humanity, humans had been building. They had 17 more ships like the Retribution under construction, and plans for 100 more. Captain Hayes had become famous throughout human space. Every young person wanted to join the crew of the ship that had defeated the Devourers, but Hayes himself was focused on bigger things. On the bridge of the Retribution, Hayes studied tactical displays showing Devourer fleet movements. Intelligence. Reports indicated they were massing their forces for a major assault on Council space. Captain, Commander Stone reported, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting a meeting with you personally. Hayes laughed. Let me guess, they want to know how many more ships we have. Something like that, sir, Stone replied. Hayes had no intention of revealing humanity's secrets to the Council, but he was willing to work with them, on human terms. Tell them I'll meet with their military commanders, he said. But the meeting happens here, on my ship. 3 days later, the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy came aboard the Retribution. They walked through corridors built for war, past weapons that could destroy planets, and crew members who treated battle like other species treated poetry. General Kethvar of the Zephyrian Defense Force was amazed by what he saw. Your crew operates in ways we haven't used for millennia, he told Hayes. Manual controls, human decision-making, redundant systems. It seems so inefficient. Inefficient, maybe, Hayes replied, but effective. When your computer systems get hacked or jammed, what happens to your ships? The alien general didn't answer, but Hayes could see understanding in his crystalline features. Admiral Thexara of the Collective Fleet asked the question they all wanted answered. How many ships like this one do you have? Enough, Hayes said, simply. The meeting was interrupted by urgent alerts from the bridge. Commander Stone's voice came over the communication system. Captain, we're detecting massive hyperspace signatures at the edge of Council space. It's the Devourer main fleet. Estimated strength, over 5,000 ships. The alien commanders looked at each other with fear. 5,000 Devourer ships was more than enough to destroy every civilization in the galaxy. Admiral Blake said humanity was willing to help. General Kethvar said quietly, "What do you need from us?" Hayes had been waiting for this moment. "We need you to do what you do best, provide support, logistics, and intelligence. Leave the fighting to us." Within hours, the largest fleet in galactic history began to assemble. But it was unlike any fleet that had ever existed. Instead of thousands of small, elegant ships, it was built around 18 massive human battleships. Each human ship was accompanied by dozens of alien vessels providing support services. The aliens carried supplies, provided communication links, and gathered intelligence. The humans carried the weapons. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of the Retribution as the combined fleet moved toward the Devourer force. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency that had become legendary throughout the galaxy. "Sir," Sullivan reported, "all weapon systems are ready. The other battleships report ready for combat." "Communications," Hayes ordered. "Open a channel to all ships." When the channel was open, Hayes spoke to the greatest armada in galactic history. "This is Captain Hayes of the UES Retribution. Today we face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. They believe they are superior because they can adapt to any threat. We're about to prove them wrong." He paused, looking at the tactical display showing 5,000 enemy contacts. "The galaxy gave up on humanity once," he continued. "They thought we were too primitive, too violent, too chaotic to matter. Today we show them that sometimes chaos is exactly what the universe needs." The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Devourer main fleet had been destroyed, and their home systems lay in ruins. The machines that had terrorized the galaxy for decades were finally defeated, but the real victory wasn't military, it was political. The Galactic Council that had once dismissed humanity now begged for human protection. Species that had considered themselves superior now sought to learn from human tactics. Admiral Blake received a message from Earth Fleet Command as she prepared to leave the council chambers. President Martinez appeared on her communication device. "Karen," the president said, "how does it feel to be the most popular human in the galaxy?" Blake laughed. "Strange, Madam President. Very strange. They're offering us everything we asked for 6 months ago, and more. What do you want to tell them?" Blake thought about it. Humanity had proven its worth in blood and fire. Now they had a choice. They could be generous victors or demanding conquerors. "Tell them we'll help," she said finally. "But this time, we do it as equals, not as children begging for scraps." President Martinez smiled. "I think I can live with that." As the human fleet returned to Earth, Captain Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Retribution, watching the stars. His ship had become a symbol of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. "Captain," Commander Stone said as she joined him, "what do you think happens now?" Hayes considered the question. Humanity had gone from outcast to saviors in less than a year. The galaxy would never be the same. "Now we get to work," he said. "The Devourers are gone, but there will be other threats, and next time the galaxy won't have to face them alone." Behind them, the UES Retribution flew through space, no longer the secret weapon of a desperate species, but the flagship of humanity's new place in the galaxy. The galaxy had given up on humanity, but humanity had never given up on itself, and in the end, that had made all the difference.